So I just shared my testimony, the 20th anniversary of my own conversion. And the reason why we have segments like Theology Thursday is because of that day. I've learned a lot of lessons, and believe me, I'm still learning them. Some of them I've had to learn more than once in this walk on this narrow road for the last 20 years. But there's 3 in particular that I want to zero in on. And I hope that they will be encouraging to you if you're on the same road as me or you're thinking about getting on this road. Number 1, stay on the road no matter what. Stay on the road no matter what. Because we are an emotion-based society these days, there's this idea that if I go against my emotions, then I'm going against who I am, and I'm hypocritical. So, for example, I'm living a life right now that I know God doesn't want me to live. I've been there. I'm acting and behaving in ways that I know God doesn't want me to act and behave. Been there too. And that's why I'm going to stop going to church. Because I'll just be a complete hypocrite when I'm in there. The opposite is actually true. The opposite is true. It is not hypocrisy to stay connected to the Lord while we are either contemplating rebellion or actively in rebellion to Him. That is actually a demonstration of faith. You have it backwards. You're listening to your emotions. Because we come from a culture that if the emotional sentiment, if the emotional connection is not there, then if we act in ways that are contrary to our emotions, then it's not who we really are, what we really think. The opposite is true. I didn't lose 150 pounds because every day I went to the gym, I felt like it. I didn't avoid putting that 150 pounds back on because every day since I've gone to the gym, I felt like it. Most days, I don't feel like being there. But we're called to make disciples. We're called to be disciples. The root word of discipline is disciple. When you act contrary to your emotions on what you know here to be true, that is actually a demonstration of faith. That's actually a demonstration of discipline. God is not surprised you're sinning against Him. You didn't show up at church that Sunday and God was like, whoa, you're here. Didn't see that coming. Especially after what I saw you do yesterday. Doesn't work that way. God sent Jesus to die for your sins, knowing the sins you've already committed against Him. Knowing the sins you're committing against Him now, and knowing the sins you will commit against Him in the future, irregardless of what Jesus did for you. And yes, I need to remember irregardless is not a word. All right? That you have it backwards. The spring and summer that Amy and I went through a very difficult time and were contemplating divorce, I didn't miss a Sunday at church. Every week I went, and this was going on in my private life. Was I a hypocrite? No. I went and acted on faith. I was unhappy with the direction things were going. I couldn't stop it. I couldn't stop myself from participating in the direction things were going. And so the only thing I knew to do was to act outside of myself and go to church every one of those Sundays anyway, hoping at some point I would hear some word from the Lord and He would stop me from the road that I am on and that we're both on. And you know what? Eventually He did, which will bring me to my second point here in a moment. Do not get off the road. Do not let go of the rope. And especially go and get up and grab hold of that rope and stay on the road when you're not feeling it. Do it especially then. That's faith. I don't feel it. I don't sense it. It doesn't seem right. but I'm going to do what God says to do anyway. He said for me to get up off my now dad bod rear end and go to church. So I'm going to do it, even though I'm not feeling it. And I'm feeling like a failure pretty much right now, actually. It is faith to act outside of your feelings. There is no requirement to align your faith with your faith and feelings. They may not align. Our faith may call us to do things our feelings don't want us to do. But then we ask ourselves, whom is Lord? Us and our feelings, or the Lord? And that brings me to number 2. God is faithful and does provide. And I don't mean that in a Creflo Dollar way. I don't mean that we're all going to die. I get requests every day in this audience from somebody who either is suffering from a health scare or someone they love is, and I share all of those with you and on social media to get the prayer warriors activated. But understand the death rate remains for the physical body 100%. But even in that case, if there isn't a healing, God did provide. He provided you his son so that you have a path to live forever with him in paradise. God always provides. We just have to make sure we do not limit God to providing in the way that we anticipated or for the specific outcome that we think is required. But God always provides. I learned this immediately. First time I ever did a public speaking engagement as a believer, I got invited to go speak to a men's ministry in an exurb about an hour outside of our home. I go there right after my show. I give my talk. I don't remember anything that I said. But they had asked me if I wanted an honorarium. I said, no, you know what? It's just I'm happy to do it. It's just a little bit out, it's a half hour outside of my way. Do you guys have like a local, like family-owned pizza place? Because a lot of times those are the best pizza places. They said, oh yeah. I said, all right, tell you what, you have an Italian sausage ready for me to go hot because I'm going to miss dinner. I'm coming to talk to you guys instead of going home for dinner. So you guys have that ready for me. So that's my dinner on the way home, and we'll call it even. They said, no problem. So I get done with my talk, and I go to grab my pizza, and the guy that invited me walks up to me, and he pulls out of his pocket a wad of bills. And he says, hey, man, I know you said you didn't want an honorarium, but we just felt bad because you've got a small kid at home, and we took you out, away from dinner, and we just took up a little collection for you, and wanted to say thank you for your time. And I'm like, no, it's okay. He's like, no, really. I said, no, it's okay. Finally, he's like, no, really. And I could tell now I'm starting to insult him by refusing it. So I look down, and it's just like a $10. It's a wad of bills. It's pretty modest, and there's a $10 bill on the outside. So it's not like it was a king's ransom, and so I didn't have to feel bad. And so I took it from him, and I grabbed my pizza. I thanked him very much, and I just drove home. I get home, my wife is pacing in the house, and early in our marriage, I was not generous with Amy when things were financially tight. In fact, I was very harsh. And so I get home, and she's pacing, and I look at her and say, hey, what's wrong? She goes, please don't get mad. And I said, that's always the first thing you want to hear, right? And she said, I screwed up the checkbook. I thought that I had written a check already for the electric bill, and I didn't. And we're overdrawn. And I said, how much? And she said, it's like $140. Now, when you're making $35,000 a year on a single income home with a mortgage, that's a lot of money, man. But I figured this was a test. And I just kind of swallowed, and I said, honey, it's okay. Don't worry about it. We'll figure it out. I really also just wanted to eat this pizza. So I get home, hang my keys up, empty my pockets, pull out this wad of bills, I put it on the counter. I just start eating this pizza. Amy, of course, goes right for the wad of bills, opens it up, rips off the rubber band, opens it up, and starts counting it. She said, hey, what's this? And I said, no, the guys took up an offering for me. They felt bad that I, was late coming home from work and missed dinner. So, yeah, I didn't even look at it. I don't even know how much is there. She starts counting it. How much money do you think was in that wad of bills? $140. Exactly what we were overdrawn in our checking account. Every job I've ever had in this business, I've not applied for a single one of them. Never. Every single one. Every radio job I ever got, somebody called me, even national jobs. Somebody that I did not know called me out of the blue and offered me a job. How did I get on the Blaze? Gaston at CRTV called me out of the blue one day and said, hey, we're going to merge the Blaze. Do you want to be on? Okay. That's how I got on, guys. You know, how'd I get a movie deal? A guy named Glenn Beck I'd never met in my life called me out of the blue. Said, hey, I read your book, A Nefarious Plot. Blew my mind. Didn't even know he had my number. I have never successfully applied for a job in broadcasting in my entire career. And every job I have gotten, I never applied for. Never submitted for. Somebody came and offered it to me. God just strategically placed older men in my life all the way through my walk to basically play the role of surrogate father at different times and provide different life lessons and mentoring that I needed at that stage of life. I didn't know who a Tom Pickrell was. God just put him there. That's just one of several examples. God is faithful and does provide. It may not look the way you want it to look. It may not come in the timing you want it to come. And we will not be fully provided for and cared for until we reach the next side, we reach the other side of eternity. It is a fallen world. But if I've learned anything in 20 years, it's stay on the road no matter what or what you're feeling. And it's number two, God is faithful and he does provide. He does. I've had emails from people asking me, hey, what process or how did you and your wife heal your marriage? God just did it, man. It just happened. Literally we were on the brink of walking away and we looked at each other and it was like, God just stepped in and was like, this is dumb. And we looked at each other and we were just like, this is dumb. And everything changed. God provides. Number 3. Suffering leads to growth and righteousness. And this one, you are probably, if you go to a church in America, you are probably being robbed of this truth. They are probably teaching you how to avoid all forms of suffering. Don't rock the boat. Don't be controversial. Stay in your lane. Don't take any controversial stances. Don't confront any evil. Avoid pain if necessary. The idea that a bunch of people who live in $300,000 to $600,000 homes, and yeah, even upper middle class suburbanites have problems. But in the end, you're coming home to a garage that is worth more than 95% of the homes the rest of the world can afford. And that's your garage. And the idea that on Sunday, you still have to go to a church that makes everything nice and easy and simple for you because everything was the rest of the week, you're being robbed. The second most intimate encounter I've ever had with the Lord, other than my conversion, happened in a makeshift ICU room 2,000 miles away from where I live last April, surrounded by people I don't even know, in the worst health condition I've ever been in my life, near death, 24 plus hours, a consecutive 103, 104 degree fevers, unable to eat, think, talk. Can't even move my arms, the pain in my biceps from the IVs on each side that had been in there for more than 2 days. But it took that kind of suffering for me to be humble enough, quiet enough, and teachable enough for God to grant me with that intimate of his presence. We have been robbed of the joy of suffering for the name. And a chance for God to show us how faithful he is, to show us in those circumstances how he provides, to show us that he can be trusted. And then when the next time that difficulty happens, we stay on the road, even when the emotions tell us to walk away. See, I had some of those. I've been fired from multiple jobs. I've failed a lot. And so when my marriage was failing a few years ago, my faith muscle had built up enough that I knew. I didn't know how it was going to turn out. I didn't know that this marriage was going to be saved. But I knew enough to stay on the road and that God provides. I knew enough to do that. And too many American Christians have not been taught those valuable lessons. And so the faith muscle is weak. As Francis Schaeffer said, our God is too small. And we bow to public opinion. We bow to public pressure. We depart from that road. We don't trust that God is faithful. Lean into the difficulty. Lean into the suffering. It is through Christ's suffering that we were given eternal life, that we got to see resurrection. And it is through your suffering that you will see God perform miracles in your life too. It'll not come through comfort. It'll not come from cheeky outreach programs, but confrontation and suffering. And I'm sorry that too much of the current church age has robbed us of that teaching. And so we are unprepared. And unfortunately, we're facing an era where the suffering is going to be tuned up to quite a bit of a level compared to what we have seen in the past. But trust that God is faithful through those circumstances. I hope that this was encouraging to you. Thank you for listening, John 3:17.